So I'd like to start off and do a roll call. So I can see my fellow commissioners. Commissioner Ho, are you present?
Yes, present.
Thank you. Commissioner Giardo.
Present.
Commissioner Jimenez.
Present.
Great. Commissioner Jefferson.
Present.
And Commissioner Vincent.
Present.
Great. So I think, and I'm also here, so I think we have a total of 6 commissioners today, correct? So, so we obviously have a quorum. The first order of business is, are there any neighborhood council representatives here today? I think probably not. So we'll move on to the next item, which is public comment on non-agenda items germane to the business of the commission. Okay, I guess there's no in that. And then the next item is approval of the minutes from July 12th. Has everyone had a chance to review those? Great. Okay, so I will, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
So move.
Thank you, Commissioner Jefferson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Vincent. So I'll take a quick roll call vote. Commissioner Gallardo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Ho,
Yes.
Commissioner Jimenez,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vincent,
Yes.
and I also vote yes, so motion has been approved. So the next item is the findings to continue the teleconferencing meetings pursuant to AB 361 action items. So I'll read this paragraph. Recommendation to adopt the findings and determination in accordance with AB 361 section 3E3, that while the state of emergency due to COVID-19 pandemic, as originally proclaimed by the governor on March 4th, 2020, remains active, and or state or local officials have imposed or recommended measures to promote social distancing, this legislative body has reconsidered the circumstances of the state of emergency. Of the state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of members to meet safely in person, and or state or local officials continue to impose or recommend measures to promote social distancing. So this is allowing us to meet remotely. So I think we have to take a vote on this every month. So is there a motion to approve this item?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Commissioner Ho.
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Jefferson. So we'll do a quick roll call vote. Commissioner Gallardo,
Yes.
Commissioner Jimenez,
Yes.
Commissioner Vincent,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Ho,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. So item number 7 is approved.
Commission President, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think let's just go back. I just want to confirm that we did public comment on both agenda items, germane and non-germane.
Correct. I thought I did that one, so I may have skipped item number 5. So sorry about that, everyone. So we'll go out of order. So item number 5, public comment germane to the agenda items. Are there any public comment? Does not look like there's any public comment, so we can then move on. So now we're at the public art projects action items. So the first item is the Golden Rule Flower of Life. And I think Paul Pedescor is going to be presenting from staff. Is that correct?
Sure, yeah. My name is Paul Pescador. Yeah, I'll be presenting the project. Good afternoon, Commission. My name is Paul. I'm an arts associate in the Public Art Division, and today we will be presenting Golden Rule Flower of Life. The artist for this project is Eric Reyes, and today we'll be asking for conceptual and final approval. This project will be owned and maintained by the Bureau of Street Lighting, and it'll be installed in Council District 11 and installed at 6 intersections along Venice Boulevard between Inglewood and Beethoven. The budget for this project is $35,000. And to speak on this project today, we have 2 individuals from the Los Angeles Neighborhood Initiative, Jose Alvarez and Anna Apostolos, who I believe are currently here. They are ready to speak. I will do a screen share to bring up the presentation.
Thank you, Pao. Thank you, commissioners. My name is Jose Alvarez. I'm the program manager of the Los Angeles Neighborhood Initiative, working on this Mar Vista, Downtown Mar Vista Beautification Project. I'm here to present this work that we've conducted. You can go to the next slide, Paul. The Los Angeles Neighborhood Initiative, in partnership with Council District 11, the Los Angeles Department of Transportation, and Studio 111, have implemented a beautification program along Venice Boulevard between Inglewood and Beethoven. This 0.8-mile corridor is considered the heart of downtown Mar Vista, a distinct neighborhood centered filled with unique shops, businesses, cafes, anchored by the Mar Vista Public Library, and features a lively weekly farmers market, as shown in the slide here. Next slide. During the last few years or so, this part of Mar Vista has seen many improvements, significant outreach in previous years, prioritized elements which have been installed, including the improvements shown here, categories including greening, pedestrian, cyclist safety enhancements, neighborhood identity, and community art projects, among others. Next slide, please. So yeah, using CD11's discretionary funds, we wanted to expand on and build upon these great street improvements, and had some project goals as identified here: enhancing pedestrian corridor, unifying identity for downtown Mar Vista, helping create a vibrant main street, and enhance visitor and community experience, increase economic activity, amenities that engage local patrons, and safer, more secure communities, embracing interactive social spaces. Next slide, please. So in order to do this, we held 2 community meetings with community stakeholders and determined elements and themes for what the community wanted to see, and use the discretionary funds for these continued improvements. These were, from public art to street seating to wayfinding signage to landscape accents. Next slide, please. So through that, we had pole art as an option, as denoted here. And the next slide will detail that we ended up having hosting a meeting that we had constituents and stakeholders actually conduct a vote as to what themes and elements they wanted to see. Next slide, Pao. As you can see here, pole art received 35% vote out of the over 60 participants in attendance. We presented these 5 mural designs and 1 pole art design. And so the 5 mural designs have already been successfully installed, and we held this competition to identify a artist that the community could choose from to design the pole art. Next slide, please, Paul. So some of the themes that they could choose for both the murals and this pole art were Mar Vista's history, social justice and equity, getting around Mar Vista transportation, or other themes identified by participants in the meeting. Next slide, please. And these were the submission entries by the varying artists that folks in attendance were able to vote on. Next slide, please. And the winner was a social justice theme finalist by the artist Eric Reyes from the Meraki Art Collective, called Golden Rule, Flower of Life, as shown here. And next slide. Eric Reyes is a native of Los Angeles, depicted above here in 2019, winning design for Venice Boulevard, Big Belly Solar trash compactor. Not a stranger to Mar Vista, originally from South Los Angeles. His pop art is inspired art and graphic design mix of vivid colors, black and white palettes with distinctive complex geometric patterns that have delighted clients and neighborhood alike across the Los Angeles area. There's more information there on his Instagram and Facebook, Murakami at Murakami Collective. You can see his designs currently right now on the Mar Vista Streetlight medallions that he was selected to and voted by in 2020. Yeah, so I think that covers most of the project. Happy to take any questions. Myself or Anna Apostolos, Director of Neighborhood Improvement Projects, that is here as well from Lonnie.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lanny, and thank you, Paul. Do any commissioners have any comments or questions they want to ask?
Are all of the photographs that we've seen, are actually what is being proposed or what we're deciding on, or are they kind of clip art placeholders? Or are we only voting on the last piece?
You're only voting on the last piece. I'll reshare screen. 1 second. So, can you see it?
Okay. So we're voting on this as a street banner, or is this made out of metal and then painted, or what is the durability of it?
So the project is solid printed on it's aluminum panel. It is 36 by 32 with an expected lifespan of minimum 3 years, and it will be maintained by Bureau of Street Lighting. There's already an agreement with my understanding with this project for maintenance.
Is this been going to be laser cut, or is that just actually just a white background?
Jose?
So these are cutouts.
So the parts that are represented in white will actually be able to see through to the sky, right?
Right, those are cutouts.
Okay, great. One other question I just have out of curiosity, why aren't they larger?
Bureau Street Lighting only allows 8 square foot of surface area on a pole, light pole. This is exactly 8 square feet.
Okay.
I have a question. I'm wondering how many street poles are located in that area? And are they just going on the street poles, or are they on traffic lights?
There's very limited street lights on this area that are on the sidewalks and that don't have traffic lights on them. Bureau Street Lighting does not allow you to place banners, permanent banners on poles without lights. The other light poles are located in the median, the other row bed lights, and CD11 had wanted it to be on the sidewalk side. So I believe there are only about 8 poles that they could be on.
Okay, so there's a total of 8.
Yes.
Are there any other questions from any of the other commissioners?
Yeah, I have a question. So because this process of selection was a call for, it was described as a contest, And I saw the budget. The artist is getting paid, is that right?
The artist did receive some, I think about $2,500 for the design. A designer then created the shop drawings and they were manufactured. So the budget is for manufacturing these. They were expensive to manufacture because of the color gradation and the cutouts. And then that's also the cost, includes the cost for installation. There are also calculations, engineering calculations that are required for the permit.
Okay, I know we're here to approve design, but I do want to mention that standard practice with public art projects is that the artist receives 10 to 15% of the total project budget. So just want to share that here.
I think he did receive probably 3,000.
Which would be 10%.
Yeah, 10%.
I can't do math off the top of my head, not one of my fortes. But just
Might
want
have
to
even
share
been a
that.
little more because I think we gave him another $300 to $500 to modify the design just a little bit.
Okay, thank you. The clarification on how this, the cutouts was helpful because even upon just looking at the illustrations or these, these graphics, I was concerned that the very beautiful and important message will be lost in sort of distance, height. And I'm wondering if you all thought, and now that I understand it'll be cut out, I'm wondering if it's even translatable. Did you all think about, I mean, do you have discussions about it? Can you share kind of what thoughts went into that?
Discussions with the artist about whether that, and the manufacturer, about whether those could be cut out or not. There was discussions of that sort. The artist is happy with the design of, with how the signs came out. He's seen photographs and such. We have them waiting to be put up.
Appreciate that. I'm just thinking about at the public realm and how the this public art piece is, taken in, understood, engaged with the public. That's why the clarity and how translatable this will be from afar is likely, or in my opinion, unlikely. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay.
Are there any other comments from any of the other commissioners?
Can I follow up? I appreciated all the questions that came before this because in some respects the answers answered some of my questions. But on the other hand, when I read this and it says solid printed aluminum, that does not denote to me anything that was short of a cutout. And then when the answer came back for cutout, I assumed it was the medallion figure in the center, but not the writing. This conversation we've just heard makes me think that it's the cutout of the medallion, it's the cutout of the lettering. And therefore, at the end of the day, what you're going to see, even standing on the sidewalk, you have to almost be right up underneath it, is just simply the rainbow imagery and not the totality of the artwork. So I'm kind of where everyone else is, which is if this is the size that we are limited to, and the description that's being told to us is that everything on it is a cutout except the color, then I think it's going to be hard to see the totality of the artwork. And that's not a commentary on the artist's design. It's a commentary on why would we put forward a piece of public art that is not visible.
The lettering is printed. It is not cut out. The design in the middle is the cutout part.
So
And
what size letters are we looking at on an 8-foot sign?
I have an image of it here, but I don't have it. But they're very large. The sign though is 16 feet in the air. They're
So the,
larger than it
was the-
appears. They're about the Mar Vista size. You see Mar Vista in the printing, they're that large.
right, but clearly Do Unto Others is a different size font than Mar Vista. That's one. Two, we're looking at what was the graphic rendering of the thing. We're not looking at the thing. So we're
Right.
being asked to approve the graphic rendering, which would have been a pre-approval, and to now approve this as final. And what we're saying back to you is, it looks like the full scope of the artwork will not be visible. So when we take into account the amount of money to be expended, the maintenance by the department, and the intent, are we going to meet that? Is this design going to do that? And so without some scope and scale, right now, I'm kind of where Vincent was, and I'm kind of where Gallardo is, and it has nothing to do with the artist's concept. It has to do with scope and scale for the location.
And you mentioned there might be another visual image that may be useful to help reference. Is that what you were stating a second ago? I can do a screen, I can share the screen if you have that on hand.
I think that the point is that the intention of the artist with the lettering, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, is lost. So a good part of the intention of the artist is lost because of the constraint of the size, and that's why I brought it up in the first place. However, that seems to be beyond our scope. But what I would like to suggest is if we could ask the commission president, if we approve this, to somehow message to street lighting that we would like them to reconsider the size of the pieces that hang on the poles. And I'm just kind of curious as to how they came onto their decision, because I've seen, we've seen for the LA Opera or the zoo or whatever, much larger banners, albeit temporary, hung on there. So I'm just wondering why this couldn't be larger. And if we could express to them that we would like to see them update their guidelines to make it larger, for a larger format for these kind of art installations.
Commissioner Vincent, I may be able to shed some light on that. I did talk to them about the sizing of the banners, and I think it's due to the pole type. There's a lot of different pole types with the Bureau of Street Lighting, and each one can hold a different weight of attachments. So that could be a limiting factor. And since this is made out of aluminum, it would be lighter than, let's say, a fabric banner. So therefore it has to be smaller in size. So this was a conceptually how we talked about it with Bureau of Street Lighting. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. It does not, but thank you.
I'm not trying to counter Commissioner Vincent, but I do not think this is outside of our scope. The rendering of an artwork and whether it works in the location that it is going into is part of our scope. The concept for the artwork is fine and the community likes it, so I have no reason to object to it. But the production of the artwork is not adequate for what the artwork is trying to do. How this issue gets resolved is totally up to the community and the Bureau to decide. But I would not sit back and say that we said, yeah, sure, go ahead and take a rainbow piece of metal, cut out a medallion design in the center, and then wrap some words around it that nobody can read. Because it then just seems like the artwork was the medallion and the rainbow colors. And if that is a new logo for Mar Vista, okay. But if this is about rendering an artwork that represents the community, then I think we would be about to say yes to a disservice to the artist's work and intent. And I just think this needs some reworking and conversation to resolve it. I would lastly just point out, I suspect that when you put a metal on the pole versus a printed fabric, issues associated with wind and bendability and what happens if this falls off, what are the edges made like, you can it or cannot impale somebody, all kinds of things like that come into play. But this is where the specs and then the art to be rendered on the specs, I'm not sure which chicken or egg should have come first, but right now, I think one may have been born without the help of the other.
I just wanted to state, I agree with what has been said about there's no problem with the concept. It's about this, again, the place in which this public art is going to be received and the manner in which, or the effectiveness it will be received. So, I'm not going to, I see a very easy fix now that I understand that the letters will not be cut out, they will be white, or I'm assuming, is there a way to bold them, to make them stand out? If not larger, can they be bolder? So I think I think I'm comfortable in voting at a conceptual with that feedback, all the feedback that my fellow commissioners have given, if that's something we want to do. Just wanted to clarify my statements.
Well, I also have a little comment too. I think the idea is great conceptually. I think the execution would probably go through one more pass. Is the bottom of the sign at 16 feet? Is that what you said, Dana? Because maybe there's a way that the artist can look at this. Maybe it's longer. Maybe it's 42 inches. I mean, I think the message do unto others as you would have them do unto you is the strong message. We all kind of know it's Mar Vista, that area. I'm just looking at this graphically, like, can you flip Mar Vista on the top and really make this message longer so you can see it, which would increase the font and it would be easier to read. Maybe the cutout smaller. I sort of agree with all my fellow commissioners. I feel like I could approve this conceptually, but for final, I'm not so sure. I'm in a space right now where the bottom of the ceiling is 11 feet. And I don't know if I could read the text at 11 feet. So if this is at 16 feet, that's an additional 5 feet. I think the only thing you're gonna read is Mar Vista and see the cutout. And I guess I would say, what is the artist's intent? Is it the message he's saying? Is it the cutout, or is it Mar Vista? Because it seems like it needs a little more clarity. So I feel strong in approving it conceptually, but not for final. So I don't know if there's any other commissioners that have any comments. Commissioner Ho or Jimenez, do you have any comments or?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay.
No, it's been addressed.
Okay, great. So
I'd like to move for conceptual approval.
thank you. And then do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, great. So I'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Jimenez, how do you vote?
Yes.
Conceptual only and not final.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Ho,
Yes.
Commissioner Vincent,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Gallardo,
Yes.
and I also vote yes. So thank you, and we'll be looking forward to seeing this again in the upcoming weeks ahead. So the next item, we have another public art project. It's North Central Animal Shelter. It's in Council District 1. And they're asking for conceptual and final approval. And I don't know who is going to be presenting this. Is the
That's
art?
me.
Yami Duarte from DCA will be presenting.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. Okay.
All
Yeah.
right. Can you all hear me? Great. All right, thank you, Commission. My name is Yami Duarte. I'm project manager for this project I'm presenting. The facility name is North Central Animal Shelter. The location is 3201 Lacey Street, Los Angeles, California, 90031. The owner is Animal Services. The council district is council member Gil Cedillo. The artist is Roberto Salas, doing business as Centro Artístico y Cultural Buena Vista. Roberto's here with us, and I'll be calling on Roberto. I think he's on a phone. Do I see you, Roberto? There he is. Okay. And the project amount is $15,000. The funding source is Public Works Improvements Arts Program. We're requesting conceptual and final approval. And the history with Public Art Committee is none. So I'll just briefly go over the project summary, artist selection process, a brief description of the project and community meetings, the maintenance of it, the pros and cons. So in 2020, the Department of Cultural Affairs released a request for qualifications to establish a pre-qualified list of muralists. Roberto Salas was one of the artists that was selected to propose for this animal shelter project. One of 4 muralists were selected. The commission might recall that we've brought a project, this animal services public art project before with the Pascal and Dusendalka project. It was a tile mural with animals. So this is the same building, but Roberto Salas is proposing to do some stone relief stone relief panel murals in the patio area of the shelter. So of these 4 artists that proposed, all four proposals were received positively by the community. And the community meeting was held in December 2020. And in January 2021, we held a panel. The panel was comprised of BOE, Bureau of Engineering, Animal Services, art conservators, and muralists. The panel also positively received all 4 proposals. And this proposal by Salas, titled Los Xoltitos. I hope I pronounced that right. The mural depicts Xoloitzcuintle, an ancient dog breed common to Peru and Mexico, which is revered and described in Aztec and Mayan mythical stories as a protector in the material and spiritual world through its unconditional love and loyalty. So I'm going to pull up a picture of this, let's see, and share my screen. Can y'all see it? Great, okay. So this is the mural location. This is the patio area of the shelter. That's a brick wall. You can see as we step back, there's an entrance into the shelter. On the left side is the animal shelter entrance, one of the entrances from the patio. This is the gate facing out to Lacey Street. That's the main street And so we, let me see, let me pull up the rendering. Okay. So we are requesting conceptual and final review. At this time, I'll ask Roberto to speak a little bit on his conceptual process. And above there is the 4 panels that will be fabricated.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Yami, thank you. This is a fun project in that one of the things I'd like to address the Commission for is the pronunciation of this interesting animal, which is it's in between disliked and liked, but it is incredible, it's mythical, and it has a lot of history from our ancestors. It's pronounced Cholo Escuincle. And if you ever heard somebody refer to kids as, nah, those escuincles, those carajos, you know, that's a term of endearment that you're making for little children, you know, but it's these little dogs. They're almost like a Chihuahua on steroids, but they're just very loyal and adorable, and they have an incredible amount of history. So I was doing some research, and I've been doing a series of paintings dealing with Old World, New World, which is the juxtaposition of the Spanish, the native, which I encompass. I found these dogs and I started realizing that they're the ones that take us to the voyage across the river, across the lake, when we move on and transition, not to use the D word. I just also realized that they were used as little toys. The native people from Mexico were making little toys of them, and they just have a real charming kind of view. So my thinking here is the entrance of the actual animal shelter, where you would be greeted by a smaller piece. You have the outside mural, which welcomes you on the street, and that has visibility from the street and distance. This is a more intimate little approach and feel to when you're coming in to adopt that dog or whatever business you might have there. I have to stay away from that place because I know if I go there again, I'm going to end up with a dog. But in regards to this, it has intimacy. Let me tell you a little bit about the process. I use plastiline clay, which is an oil base, and I'll make the relief. And then I'll make a mold with latex and a mother mold with plaster, turn it around, pull out the, here's a big project that I did in Sacramento some years ago. And this is humongous. Compared to what I'm doing here, this is very little and very intimate. But I did this the same way, and I was emulating architectural details from the Victorian era. As a big project that, and successfully it's still there, and it adorns the outside of the building in Sacramento County Data Operations. So this little project here is sort of similar to that, but a little more intimate. And I hope that it'll be a nice greeting or a departure piece, almost like a touchstone. Hey, there's the Cholos. And I'm using GFRC, same material here. It's lightweight concrete that could be shaded to any color and will last a very long time. The only maintenance would be maybe cleaning up the LA smog, but that can easily be done with water and a little soap. But hopefully you'll appreciate this piece. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Do any of my fellow commissioners have any questions? Thank you, Yami, and thank you, Robert, for your presentation.
Yes, I have a question. Do you have any better representations of the reliefs that you're proposing? What I'm looking at is like 1/8 of a page. I can't really see much.
Maybe Yami can help us there a little bit.
Yeah, let me try to zoom in. So I guess what we're trying to communicate is that, so the red, red demarcation would be where the 4 go. So that'll be the scale. But you want me to, let me see if I can zoom in.
The actual renderings.
Okay. How's that?
That's better.
Yeah, they're a little light. If I may add, I've located some Cholo Squeaklas here locally, and when I actually start creating the the actual model, I'm going to have one of those dogs walk on top so we can also incorporate the footprints as part of the design or a background.
So are we going to see in your concrete the coloring and shading in what we're seeing in what looks like the watercolors? Is that actually going to be part of what we see?
It'll be one solid color and like this, and the
Mhm.
shadow will actually counter the relief, because it being a relief, you're going to have a little bit of elevation that'll
Okay.
give you the design and the shade. And it works in many different ways, because once the sun hits it directly, that's one view. When it's under shade, that's another view. So the beauty of this is the monochromatic. What I was trying to illustrate will be the texture, I can create that texture with light.
Okay. So it's
Will-
it's sculpture, in essence, it's sculptural with no color added to the concrete.
Well,
per
yeah,
se.
I will add a color which will integrate into the site and the building, because I have taken a look of the building itself, the animal shelter and the plaza. The plaza is real nice. We don't have that's the entrance to the building, but it has that coloration there. That's something between there would be something that would blend into it. And at the same time, you'll see it. It's a small little plaza. It's very intimate.
No, I'm sorry. What I meant was it's not multicolored in the way
no,
that
ma'am,
the
no, ma'am.
watercolors are reflected. Thank
No,
you.
ma'am. No, ma'am.
Thank you. Mhm.
That's just the rendering to give you an idea of the image.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other commissioners who have comments or questions? I think you can raise your hand or just speak.
I love it. The cholo is such a beloved animal and also part of our indigenous histories. And I don't know anyone who doesn't love the stories, and also those who have the privilege to own one. They're just adorable. I mean, not in a traditional conventional way, because they're not like a Maltese, but they have their own charm. So I love this. And I also love that you did this upgrade, or the ability for this kind of stone relief aesthetic to be that is so important, right, to indigenous and pre-Columbian art and art history and architecture, that you're able to recreate it here. So I love it.
Thank you for seeing that parallel.
Commissioner Ho, Commissioner Jimenez, do you have any comments or questions?
Nothing other than it's very cute, and I really appreciate the personality and the personality that I'm seeing displayed here, and I do appreciate the roots as well of the cultural context.
Thank you.
Comments for me. Thank you.
I want
And I will, oh, go ahead. I was just going to say, I actually appreciate the fact that this is becoming sculptural.
yeah,
And that it's being used to at least give some life to that rather dull entrance into the site. So I'm really enlivened by it being sculptural as you had done the other pieces. So thank you very much for clarifying all those questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, Robert, I love the playfulness of it. I also think it's really fun, and I love that it's the bas relief. It's going to cast shadow, and because that wall and that whole little space seems a little flat, so it'd be really nice to kind of give it some dimension. So thank you. So on that note, do I have a motion to approve?
I'd like to move to approve.
Great, thank you, Commissioner Vincent. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Gallardo. So I'll do a quick roll call vote. Commissioner Ho,
Yes.
thank you. Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Vincent,
Yes.
Commissioner Jimenez,
Yes.
Commissioner Gallardo,
Yes.
and Commissioner Jefferson, did I ask you? Sorry,
Yes, you did.
I need a coffee.
Okay, I don't mind saying yes twice.
And I also vote yes, so motion approved, and we'll look forward to seeing this piece installed.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you, Yemi.
So the next item are the architectural submission and their action items. They're for above ground facilities, and I'd like to invite one of the staff members. There's 3 items. The first one is T-Mobile SV00943A anchor. And I think, is staff presenting this or is Joshua Alba?
Joshua will be presenting his project.
Okay, thank you, Tammy. Joshua, or can you?
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Damien. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, I'll be filling in for Joshua today, and I will be presenting our project here, and I will share my screen shortly. Oh, am I able to share my screen? It's saying host disabled.
Scott, can you allow him to share the screen? Let's see.
Go ahead.
All right, here we go. All right, perfect. Thank you very much. So as I mentioned, my name is Damien Pichardo. I will be here representing T-Mobile as the applicant for this modification to an existing above ground facility located at 17300 and a half Pacific Coast Highway. I'll start with some photos to get an idea of what this looks like here. We'll zoom into this existing view. So we currently have antennas located on the pole, as you can see here. We have our equipment in the right of way on the floor. So this pad here with a couple of cabinets and support equipments behind on some H-frames. And zooming back in to our proposed design. So we're proposing slightly wider antennas, I would call it. And then we also have this shorter antenna than what's existing, but also wider. And this is really to support T-Mobile's 5G network that they are adamantly rolling out across the nation. We will have some minor changes to this cabinet area as well, but zooming out here, you can see it's pretty similar, not significant in aesthetic change here. Was somebody trying to speak as well? Okay, I'll continue. So moving to our plans to give another idea of exactly what's occurring here. So we currently are proposing 6 antennas on this pole. We'll of course run our structurals, confirm everything's adequate to support that equipment. And from here, this view, you can see the changes happening on the ground equipment. So we'll be swapping this cabinet, which is a rather large cabinet, and we'll be installing 2 smaller cabinets in their place, and then replacing this equipment that's kind of on the back as a backpack to those cabinets that's supporting the antennas actually. We just did not put those equipment on the pole to limit, how much is going up there, both structurally and from an aesthetic standpoint. And so here's a before and after. We currently have 3 antennas on this pole and proposing to install an additional 3 for a total of 6. There will be some minor underground work here from equipment location to the pole. Otherwise, it's fairly straightforward, at least from our sense and in terms of a typical upgrade for us. And I'll leave it open to questions from there.
Thank you, Damien. Do any of my fellow commissioners have any questions or comments?
So in the new proposed antennas, they're not going to have what we see in the existing images, those wires like all out. This is sort of an encased, or you see how like whatever those things hanging down there.
Yes, we still will have cabling going to and from the antennas. These photo sims, they don't show those appropriately, but yes, we will have similar wiring as to what we see here.
What?
So what are those solid pieces? What function are they serving?
By solid
The
pieces.
brown solid pieces out of which the wiring, like, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the actual antenna itself. So that's what's transmitting and receiving the signal, and the wires. Essentially, you have power and telecommunications feeding that antenna. So that's how you get that's how it connects to the landlines, that then connects to another tower and goes to your cell phone, and then obviously power to power the antenna as well.
So Damien, do you have a drawing? I think Commissioner Garrett, you're trying to understand what this actually looks like a drawing of that shroud piece. Is that what you're asking, Commissioner Guerrero? Because
Yeah, sort of, but it's not so much, there's not much difference, except there seems to be additional panels.
Right.
But when I look at the existing, it looks messy. I understand why, right? That there are these cables and wiring that are part of the function, but it just looks a mess. And yeah, it would be great if these panels could be, could cover that to the extent that it's possible within the design. But because that's the only issue I have. I mean, it is what it is otherwise, right? But that's the only thing.
Yeah, and I'll try
that I
to
would comment on.
I'll try to get some drawings here that kind of should show better. It's almost, I'm trying to relate it to like a common. So this would be our panel antenna. This is the bottom view. So these are all the ports that those cables are feeding into. So you have you're plugging into the bottom of that with your power and telecommunications. And then of course, because the cables are running up the pole, they kind of have to go down and then back up and down the pole, as opposed to, let's see here.
so are we going to see those cables hanging down? I don't know what you would call those little.
Yeah, I understood that he just said yes, that will continue to be the case.
Yeah, so it'll be similar to here. I'm going to try to draw, well, you can follow my mouth, but so from the bottom of the antenna, it has to loop around, back up and across and down the pole, rather than, let's say, cutting straight from the bottom of the antenna and then you have it hanging down the pole. So these cables have a certain essentially bending radius. So that's why they kind of have to loop like that, as opposed to kind of just coming back and tucking it in. There's a certain bending radius that those cables can support. So unfortunately can't like tuck them in as much as we might want to.
Can I
comment? Yeah, Commissioner Jefferson, can you?
Okay, so the note I wrote as you wrote this down was it went from ugly to bigger, but at least bigger was neat. That was the note I wrote down before Yvonne wrote the question. And that in order to get neat, we would probably have to get bigger. And by the way, T-Mobile's my carrier, so I have a vested interest in this. However, I want us to pull back and look at the full view of this photograph. This is our ocean view. If we are going to sit here and say that we can send a satellite in space that can manage to figure out how to unfold and all kinds of other things, and we can't figure out how to at least have the view that's in the picture that's being presented versus the view that's sitting there right now, then there is no purpose for us to be able to sit here. And given the kind of conversations we have had about boxes on the ground on the street, to sit here today and say, oh yes, that's what I think our ocean view should look like when you pass it by. I guess I'm just getting ready to turn into the terrible commissioner because I can't do that.
I agree. Does any other commissioners have questions and comments?
Same, just I don't know what difference you're providing other than it being bigger.
I would like to join my fellow Commissioner Jefferson in being that terrible commissioner. I've been involved in doing underground wiring that comes off a pole like this. And I see that there are several conduits. In fact, I don't think there's room for another conduit. And it's a joint pole. And my suspicion is that you're renting the pole from either AT&T or I don't know if there's power on the top or not, DWP or Edison. And I couldn't approve anything short of starting all over. At the very, very, very least, attempting to maybe somewhat mimic the palm tree next to it. But this is beyond my ability to even consider.
If we're making recommendations on the design of it, of these panels themselves, understanding that you have the plugins at the bottom, my question would be, how can you get those plugins where you need them to be while extending the superficial, right? Superficially, extending these panels so that they cover the wires. That's what I would imagine would be ideal, because I think that's what we all thought when we first saw your rendering, was that, oh, great, they accommodated for that messiness and covered it. So if there's a way, in terms of recommendations, if there's a way to do that, I think we would all feel much better about approving this. As for the boxes on the side, I just, it is what it is. It looks like, I don't, right? Like, it looks a little cleaner, but I think for these panels, that's what I would recommend in order for me to feel comfortable in giving an approval.
Yeah, so I think I'll comment on that if you guys don't mind. So I think we can do with what I'm understanding. So if you can see this, imagine this as maybe just a plastic cover, so to say, or whatever the material is, but a cover that we can essentially cap over those hanging wires, paint it to match our antennas. So in that case, it might look like a little bit of a larger structure, but at least you're not seeing the cables for that extra 8 inches or so. And it'll essentially screen the cables from view of the front of the antenna, and then they'll come back up the top towards the back.
So how big are the existing panels and how big is the new panel?
So the existing panel is going to be,
and when I say new, I don't mean what you just designed, which might be a solution. I mean the one that's up there right now with the wires hanging from.
yes. So they're about the same height at approximately 5 feet. The existing panels are about 13 inches in width. I think it froze me here. The existing panel is about 13 inches in width, and the new panel is going to be 19 inches in width. So,
but they're the same, but otherwise they're the same, currently the same length.
Yes, and then we do have those 3 additional antennas. Those are much smaller, so those are going to be kind of more squarish, 20 inches in width and 33 inches in height.
5 feet is huge.
Huge. That's huge, and it's also right on the ocean. I mean, I could be the bad president commissioner, but I don't think I could approve this for Conceptual at all.
Yeah, I didn't. Thank you for asking that question, Commissioner Jefferson, because that is a whole other, issue.
Well, and also I think, Damien, when you come back to us, in all honesty, Photoshop, what you presented to us is not exactly what it's going to look like. And that's a little insulting to show us something that, we think the wires are not going to be dangling from below. So, I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
wondering.
I would suggest a complete redesign, and going at it with attempting to at least somewhat mimicking the palm trees or something along that line. But anything at all close to this is just attempting to put a little more lipstick on a pig.
Is it possible for staff to provide some other examples that we approved, that the commission approved in the past that align with the suggestions given here?
Sure, I'll work with the applicant.
Great.
And I will say, I don't remember ever being, and I've been here, I guess, the longest at this point, presented with anything that was on an ocean view. And so if I were sitting here today and we were, as the commission, trying to figure out how we further beautify our city, then I think that Vincent's point about, gee, this is not what we want the city of Los Angeles's ocean view to look like. And so the extended panel might serve part of the hiding process. And there would be many more of them. And so that would be appreciative, but there is a fundamental problem with this at this point. And my only other question is, can you please just re-clarify the side box? Which of those side boxes are we talking about is changing?
So I'll try to point it out here, the little arrow.
That's ugly too, but keep going.
So this larger box here,
And is it getting bigger?
it's getting replaced by two smaller. So these two, you can kind of tell they're animated here, obviously. These two boxes will replace the one larger box. So in total, I mean, they're essentially the same height if you combine them, or the same size if you combine them together.
But the height would remain the same,
Yes.
so that the view of the passerby is, I can't see the ocean.
Yeah. For the split second of driving by, sure.
Yeah, no. I'm just,
I understand.
this is not just Sprint T-Mobile's problem. This is when you allowed one, it was great. When we get to the point of how many maximum can show up in a space and then they all pack together, it becomes a wall. And then it becomes a wall that doesn't even have any uniformity about the way it looks. So the perpetuation of this approach, at some point, this just may be our point of putting the foot down. And this may be why you are unfortunately running into the problem of some of us saying, yeah, I like Vincent's idea. Everybody go back to the drawing board because we're not doing this anymore.
If I might suggest putting, coordinating with all of those service providers and putting the whole thing as an underground vault, which is entirely possible. Just have it, put them all underground, do a joint trench to the pole or from the pole, and then consider how you're going to make that pole blend in, however you want to do it.
Yeah, just to comment. Go ahead.
I think what we're trying to say here is, I don't think anybody's going to approve this conceptually right now. So I think we might want to make a motion. So
I move to, oh goodness, what's the move? I move not
reject.
I move to
Reject.
reject. Thank you. The proposed design presented to us by T-Mobile, and we'll see you back after you have revisited or created a new design, I guess. So I move to reject the proposal.
is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Commissioner Vincent, and it was first by Commissioner Gallardo. I'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Ho, how do you vote to the motion
vote-
to approve?
Yeah, I vote yes to reject this.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Jimenez,
Yes to reject.
Thank you. Commissioner Vincent,
Yes to reject.
Commissioner Jefferson.
Yes to reject
Okay, did I forget a commissioner? I'm so sorry.
yourself.
Oh, and I also, sorry, Alyssa Scrofano also vote yes to reject. Thank you, Damian, and we will see you in the near future.
All right, I appreciate you guys.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to the
Commission
next.
President,
Yes,
yeah, in the future, isn't it, if we just do it as a straight vote to approve and then we all vote not to approve, that's pretty much the same thing, right?
sure. Yeah, I think so. I just probably worded it incorrectly, but
I actually appreciate the way it happened because it made it very clear this is not working. However, let me just point the following in advance, because perhaps both Tammy and the city attorney may want to go back and have some conversations, but they don't have to take any of our ideas. They just need to understand that we are not accepting the proposal that they sent us and the reasons why we objected to it. They can hear us or not hear us, and then we can play this game back and forth till the cows come home, unless somebody comes back and tells us that we don't have a choice about the issue of wires. So I'm stopping to say this now, to say that the look of the design of the device and how the device attaches to the pole is part of the overall look and design. So when someone wants to come back and tell us, no, yours is just the approval of the panel, I'm saying, and I think we've said, no, that's not it. And every now and then there has been attempts to have battles with us when we say what someone is proposing based on the context of where it's going to go, how it's going to attach, how it will be used, what it's going to look like is not our purview. And ours is just to say whether we like the sign pink or blue. And I'm saying, I am ready for this fight. I will not be put in this position for people to come back and say to us, we had no idea how to say yes or no.
well, also
We,
could be.
sorry, we have Tanat here with the city. He would like to make a comment. Go ahead, Tanat.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Tanet Satitkit. I am with the Bureau of Engineering, the HEF group. So I believe the reason that these companies come to CAC is because of the HEF requirements under the Los Angeles Municipal Code 62.08. So under this code, the utility and telecommunication companies are required to come to CAC for the cabinet design approval. If they want to do any changes on the antennas, they don't really need an HEF permit. Basically, they don't need a city permit to change the antenna. The HEF only regulates the cabinets, which are the above ground facility, not the antennas. Just want to clarify that.
Then why did he show us? I have a question for you. Then why did he show us the pole? And why did he show us the pole with the antennas that are not exactly how it's going to be built? So it's kind of pulling the wool over somebody's eyes. And I think it's insulting, quite frankly. I mean, don't show us a Photoshop drawing of something that you say it's going to look like that, and it's not going to look like that. It's not. It's going to have a bunch of wires hanging from the bottom of it. And we sit here on a commission, you know, having to discuss this and approve things, and we're not being shown what's exactly happening. So
and we are shown antennas all the time in lots of locations. So agency, I offer the following two thoughts. One, this is a matter that I would highly want to recommend to the city council. It's time to relook at this, because we are not turning Los Angeles into what we think it ought to be. And if our role is to govern that aesthetic, then this commission, small and unmighty as we may be, are saying, it's time for a relook at this issue. We are given boxes that we look at and we raise this issue. We've been given antennas and others and have addressed this issue. And if it only says that we would not have any authority, then I would love to know, one, who has the authority, and two, who has the aesthetic interest in mind when they are giving that authority, because this agency should be registering it's not working.
If I might add to Commissioner Jefferson, I think the other thing that I suspect motivates a lot of this, as with most things, is money.
Of course.
It costs, most of the utilities are renting the pole from whoever the provider, whoever the owner is. And especially in it's something that's going along the coastline, they can, at some expense, put it all underground. All of the cabinets underground in a vault. And so I think it is the way that we get that message across is, as Commissioner Jefferson is suggesting, hanging tough on these kind of slap in your face kind of presentations. Is our city attorney with us? Or
Yes.
okay.
Yes, I'm here today. Yes, I think it's appropriate and fine for you to reject what's before you today, and then staff and all of us can go back and re-examine this issue and make it clear what it is that you can approve and not approve, or whether or not the design the antenna is part of the design and that's within your purview. So I think going to get past it right now, the rejection should stand as the way that you voted today, and then we'll take it back and we look at it again. And if Tammy needs to work with staff, then she'll work with staff. So
I just so you know, I understand all that. I don't know what the mechanism is for this commission to be able to convey back to the powers that be, whatever power we have, that there is something amiss in the alignment of our regulations that would allow our skyline to end up like this. And somewhere something needs to change. If you need us to go back to being John Q. Citizen, but since we are commissioners, I'm asking, this commissioner anyway, is asking that the agency convey back, whether it's to the mayor or the representatives, that we are concerned, with all due respect, about the way our skyline, certainly on the shore, I'll leave it with one spot at a time, has been developed, and now is the time to possibly do something about it. And should infrastructure money come from the skies of DC or anything else, maybe it's a perfect time for us to say, here's another beautification project for Los Angeles and how much we value our skyline. And that is a message that I think has to come from the agency, and the agency can always blame it on the commissioners. And if the commissioners don't always want to do it, you can just say that mean-ass gray-haired lady said, this is crazy.
Yeah, so I just reviewed quickly our design workbook for design projects, which AGFs exist under. Is that correct? I just want to make sure I'm correct on that. AGFs are under the design header.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Yes.
in that case, all of sort of the context, not just seeing that panel, is in accordance with what we should be seeing as commissioners, and taking into account how we vote, yes or no, on a proposed design. So, to Commissioner Vincent's earlier point, and agreeing with Commissioner Jefferson's points here, we're just going to keep rejecting number one, based on the existing design requirements and frameworks for our vote, and two, if these telecommunication folks do not coordinate with each other. Otherwise, it's just going to be an infinite number of add-ons, right, to the landscape, whether it's the shoreline or, the interior. And we're just going to, right, like, instead of coordinating together to condense, streamline, which, is outside of our purview, I know, But if that is the context in which the design is going to be executed, we're going to, I mean, we've known what our votes have been based on those elements, and those will continue to be considerations. And I think for me, rejections of designs. So I agree. I just want to agree with Commissioner Jefferson. This is an underlying project problem that we've been dealing with, and without that, right, it's just going to keep rendering the same vote over and over again.
So thank you. Let's take this. So we're going to take this. We'll meet internally, and we'll follow back up with you all at our next meeting on how we proceed.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Okay, so should we move to the next item? The next item is Verizon AGF. Sunky. Is that SUNKY? Is that the? So this is for final approval, and I think the contact person is Rob Searcy. I don't know who's going to be presenting this. Is it?
So Eric Fulsang will be presenting this project.
Okay, great. Eric, are you with us? Maybe you can unmute yourself. There you go.
Eric, can you unmute yourself?
Eric, are you there?
If you're joining by phone, press *6 to unmute yourself.
We could always move on to the next item and then come back to Eric. So Eric, are you there? Okay, I see you for a second. Maybe he's having a technical issue. There you are. Eric, we can't hear you. We can see you. What would you suggest, Scott? Should he try to call in, or should we move to the next item and then come back to Eric?
Let's try. Can I suggest for us to move to the next item?
Yeah. Okay. Eric, if you hear us, we'll come back to you in the next item, okay? All right, so the next item is Charter Communications Above Ground Facilities Standard Cabinets. And I think this is going to be presented by staff. Is that correct?
Yes, I will do a quick introduction and then the applicant will take over with the details.
Great, thank you.
So this one is the Charter Communications AGF standard cabinets. And the reason why this item is before the commission today is because the California Public Utilities Commission is now requiring telecom providers in Tier 2 and Tier 3 high fire threat districts to implement new strategies to keep their equipment working for 72 hours after a power outage. The two prototypes that they will be showing you today is a single cabinet prototype and a double cabinet prototype. Each model will be accompanied by a compatible pad. Could the applicant please unmute themselves and share your screen?
Tammy, this is for conceptual and final approval, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Well, thanks. First off, I'd like to thank the Cultural Affairs Commission for your generous time today. Our friends Ted and Tenet, the rest of the staff there with Bureau of Engineering, LA City Planning, LADWP, our Alpha team that is a manufacturer for the product, design, permitting, construction, and activation, and of course our Spectrum team as we all work to find a solution to help meet the project objectives. I'll go ahead and present the deck. See if I can figure out how to share my screen here. Can you guys see my screen? Yes, okay. So as Tammy mentioned, the California Public Utilities Commission issued ruling 18-03-011 on 2/18 of 2021, requiring telecom providers in Tier 2 and Tier 3 high fire threat districts to implement network resiliency strategies that will keep the network operating for 72 hours after a power outage. So currently today, if there's a PSP event or some type of power outage, our network would operate for about 4 to 6 hours due to the current battery time that we have in our cabinets. Due to the state's requirement, we're looking to add 1 or 2 additional cabinets in order to meet that 72-hour resiliency. Some of the dates that they have here: cell tower backhaul critical facilities, and insufficient wireless coverage areas. Our deadline to meet this state requirement was 10/1 of 2021. The rest of the Tier 2 and Tier 3 areas are expected to be completed by 8/1, 2022. Charter has approximately 4,000 locations across California that impact over 1 million customers. Some of our strategy is tech routing with generators to meet that 10/1 date that we have, just much smaller number, in order to meet the higher number in the Tier 2 and Tier 3 areas. This is a strategy that we'll be presenting to you today. The overall project scope is approximately 517 sites within the city of LA. And here we have a view of the districts there, where District 4 has approximately 145 of these locations, District 11 with 77, and so on there. District 7 has 82. Following page here is the single cabinet solution. As you can see here, this cabinet here is housed with 12 batteries that would allow us to meet that 72-hour resiliency. We do have the model number there from Alpha PN4FTB. This is an example of this cabinet while out in the field. Okay. And here we have some single cabinet detail and specifications for you guys. As you can see here, it's 52, has the width, height, and depth of the cabinet, 26 by 52 by 24, which fits up to 12 batteries. The cabinet weight is 250 pounds. Total weight with batteries, each battery is about 135 pounds each. So we're looking at about, close to 2,000 pounds, 1920. And as Tammy mentioned, they all will sit on a prefabricated concrete slab. This is a view of the double cabinet. And as you can see here, this one's housed with 12 batteries on the right-hand side and 6 batteries on the left there. The 2 model numbers is PN4FT, which is the one on the left, and PN4FTB, which you guys saw earlier as a single cabinet solution, is the one that's on the right. This is an example on the field of a 2-cabinet solution. And again, I have the double cabinet details and specifications here. On the left here shows the PN4FT and the PN4FTB, and of course the additional details here of cabinet weight. Okay, and this one also comes on its own double cabinet prefabricated concrete slab as well. That's the end of my deck here. I'll open it up for questions.
Thank you, Ricardo. Ricardo, did you state your name when you presented for the record?
Yeah, well, no, probably I didn't. A little nervous. Ricardo Zambrana. I'm the construction supervisor here for Charter Spectrum.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to ask my fellow commissioners if they have any questions or comments. Commissioner Vincent, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I keep getting muted. Do you happen to have a map of the city council districts with the distribution of the boxes? I just was wondering what kind of neighborhoods are receiving more boxes than other neighborhoods.
So tier 2, to answer your question, at this time I haven't created that map, but to give you a kind of an expectation of where these locations would be, there would be more on the hillside areas, right? So tier 2 and tier 3 are, further up in the hills and stuff like that. And those would be the areas that require the 72-hour resiliency. So it's not throughout the entire city. Of course, we have a lot more cabinets in the 530 there. It's mainly up in the hill areas.
Which hill areas?
Well, so throughout the city. And as I mentioned here, I don't have an actual map of the city and impose these cabinets within there to show where the districts lie at. But we have, so for example, if I bring up this view here, let's see here. We do have lat longs for these, so I know that Tenet has put these. Actually, you know what? Tenet's on the line, and I know on Navigate LA, he was kind enough to put these sites within your site there, and I'm pretty sure we'll be able to show you how that looks like. Let me just try to get to it here.
Thank you. Mr. Zambrano, you're doing a great job.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
While you're looking for that, if I'm understanding this correctly, we're being asked to approve the design without understanding where the design is going to be posted. And therefore,
ma'am,
Ricardo, this is Steve. If I could just join in, Commission President and fellow commissioners, my name is Stephen Sawyer. I'm Director of Government Affairs for Charter Communications. And these locations are going to be a jetway. So Ricardo mentioned they will be in the high fire zones of tier 2, tier 3 as designated by the California Public Utilities Commission. So they won't be throughout the entire city, but just in those designated areas where there's a high chance for fires and power outages, because one of the biggest complaints we get is, when the power goes out, they lose their telecommunication services. So that's the reason for the order. And again, we're putting these cabinets adjacent to the pre-existing cabinets that have already been approved out in the public right-of-way.
I understand,
question.
It does not, but Mr. Sawyer, you're asking us this potentially has a huge impact. We're talking about 530 cabinets throughout the city of Los Angeles. My only concern is, and asking for a map, is that to see which neighborhoods are unduly burdened. Because there is clearly not an even distribution here, and I'm just, that's my concern.
And Commissioner Vincent, so yeah, the report that we provided does have, lat longs. I'm not sure if we're going to review all 517 locations or kind of specifically where they're at, but as you can see my screen here, the Senate was able to put the that we provided onto here. So we do have the locations identified. If the commission would like to look at those, how would you like to look at those?
typically, unfortunately, there's a number of them. We would see each site individually as typically how we would approve something. And my first concern is that this has a very large impact. I would be interested to see if you put, 517 sites and what the square footage of that is. It's a very large impact. My first concern with it, aside from the specific siting, is that to see if there's any neighborhood that is unduly bearing the responsibility for this. Additional required street clutter. So that was my concern, and that's why I asked for the map.
Yeah, well, they would only be more impacted because they're in the high fire zone. So if they have a disproportionate number of cabinets, it just means more of that district is in the high fire zone. And we are meeting with each of the council district offices to go over with staff the locations of these sites.
So can I just pose if I might just pose a little thought here, which is that, for example, I live in District 10. So I'm imagining that if I was looking at this from a fire perspective, that most of these are probably going up around the hills of Baldwin Hills View Park, et cetera, where the oil wells are, et cetera, where there's a certain amount of brush. Otherwise, most of District 10 is pretty urban. However,
Correct.
There are lots of AGFs on the street of District 10. The assumption the concern that I have is, if you go to your slide 6 for a moment, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Slide 6, all right. Where we've been asked to look at these and approve them in the past, and of course I start to have a little bit of apoplexy when we look up and all of a sudden we've got 5 of them, and one's dark green, one's light green, one's something else, and there's just no sense of uniformity about the approach, and because everybody's doing their own thing, and that's kind of what it looks like. But this one is clearly up against a wall and is clear. And so in this context, if you were to come down to the one you showed us that showed the 2 boxes side by side, I think it's slide 9 or 10, something like that. Yeah, right there you go. That if you take this and it's up against the wall with the other ones that are up against the wall, it's back off of the edge of the sidewalk. And therefore it's not the immediate view, not to mention that it's not standing in front of the ocean. We generally at this point would say, okay, we got it. We can't say we're in love with this overall thing of 99 of these AGFs all looking different, but we got it. And we could say yes to that. But you're asking us to approve the design by itself without regard to the context of where it is going to be and whether or not it looks appropriate in the site it's going to be located. That's my first point. And my second point that I just simply want to make is that my assumption at the present moment is that as we go more and more towards electricity and eliminate all other fuel capacities, gasoline, et cetera, with the exception of solar, and even that still is an electrical. And we put all of our systems on electrical, cars, phones, ice boxes. Ooh, that made me, et cetera. Sorry about that, guys. Is that when we do that, the issue of anything shutting off electricity is going to put us at a position where we are going to need more and more of these battery boxes for backup. I can remember the day of the Obama election, the first time we had a small earthquake, the electricity went out, it was out all day long. And all of a sudden we were doing hand ballots instead of whatever the electrical thing was. And all of the electricity was out at the time. And there was no fire. And people couldn't call each other because it gets overloaded. So we're going to end up with a need for more and more backup. So right now I'm assuming this is temporary, that this is not the permanent solution. And from a temporary point of view, I would say, okay, if it's similar to what you're talking about in the great example that you've presented. If you're about to put 500 and they're right on the edge of the sidewalk and now all of a sudden we've added 2 more boxes, plus everybody else had to add 2 more boxes because all of them have to provide this. You're not the only one. We could have a wall of boxes on the edge of the sidewalk. So I say this to just simply say that from a commission point of view, this particular design, as I think about it as a temporary measure to solve a problem of electrical outage, I can say yes to. As a permanent solution to the problem of electrical outages, and every one of the telecommunications companies and cable companies, probably at some point, needing to have this same backup capacity, we are getting ready to come into a problem. But I do not wish to say yes to this design without seeing where each one of them is going. And I know that that is a big problem.
And Commissioner,
Yeah, go ahead.
Commissioner Jefferson, I appreciate that. So I did want to answer that first concern there with Commissioner Vincent. So in the slide, you know, and we do have each of these locations here. They do have the lat longs, like I mentioned. If you were to click in here, it goes to the Alpha Cloud, where once you click it, you can see where the location's at. Tenet did provide, once we provided them the lat long, so he was able to put that into Navigate LA. Sorry, I lost my train of thought before because County of LA has one, which is Epic LA, and I didn't want to call it the wrong thing. Not sure how we can impose, if there's a way, if Tenet can advise me, if there's a way to impose the different districts in here so you guys can see how that looks. But all these cabinets have already been placed into the city's Navigate LA website. The question you had, or concern there, Commissioner Jefferson, this is not a request from Charter Spectrum to upgrade their facilities because we want to, right? So the state has a requirement for us to have that 72-hour resiliency, right? The strategy to get us to 72-hour resiliency is what you're seeing here today, to add additional battery backup. Not sure what the future holds for all of us, if there's some other method to have some type of backup system for power. Currently, that's what we have today, and that's what we're building. That's what we're bringing to the commission for approval.
So this is a safety issue, right? If there's a case of an emergency where people are out of power, correct? And
lacking telecommunication services.
Lacking communication. Okay. So I just wanted to ask that question. And then I guess I want to propose to the other commissioners, do you have any other questions or comments? Commissioner Ho, Guillermo, or Jimenez?
Understanding coming in that this was a state requirement around safety. I feel like this vote, like what alternative do we have? But I don't understand. This seemed just like neither here nor there. It's going to happen. I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Whether we're looking at how many, right, where the context in which these boxes will be located, or the color of them, which I think is fine at this point. But if they have to happen, I don't understand what leeway we have in terms of giving input to the design without having the context or with the context. I mean, I'm just a little confused as to why this is even.
There are design choices. There are design choices. I mean, the requirement of the government is a legitimate requirement.
Absolutely.
Yes, the choice of design is up to the company. I am not objecting to the design as they have presented it. I am objecting to setting a precedent that when someone comes to us with an AGF box, they can just say, here's what my box looks like. Don't worry about where I'm going to put it. Because I'm not saying because it'll still look good no matter where I put it. And that's the fundamental AGF conversation we keep having, and the poor soul who comes along to us next with an AGF box and they're showing us where they're going to put it, they've got to answer where they're going to put it. And this time they don't have to show us where they're going to put it. And if we want to say the only reason we are not enforcing that requirement is because this is a safety mandated issue, then I can say yes, because I want to make sure that the record reflects the reason we are making an exception. Otherwise, it is not fair, frankly, either to the conversation we just had, or poor, God bless him, we know his name by heart, who comes to us with AGFs all the time, and some of we say yes to and some of we say no because of how and where it's being situated, without regard to the concern that Commissioner Vincent brought in, which is this being equitably and fairly applied? But that I leave that one aside for a moment and just go, I don't want to set a precedent unless we say this is being approved with the understanding that this is a statewide mandate as a safety measure.
I absolutely 100% support and agree with all of that. And given that we have very little, right, about location, et cetera, I think one of the things perhaps we can request is, understanding the colors you've presented here, we're always concerned with the color of these AGF boxes, but being one that allows a blendability into the environment. So if you all have to go through those 517 boxes and locations, I apologize, but that's something that I would really want to see if we're going to approve this, or recommend if we're going to approve this.
Sorry, I have something to say to this based on some of your comments. This is actually not new. In 2015, the commission did approve 3 cabinet designs and there were no locations given. It was just the cabinet designs, and we worked with the Bureau of Engineering on the actual location. So back then it was Harut. So it was just the cabinet design, because when we reviewed the ordinance, the Cultural Affairs Commissions actually we don't have a purview over the location of these cabinets. And the ones that are being presented before you today, there are actually very strict technical aspects to it. They can only be located near an existing box. There's not a whole, they can't be located very far. It's pretty set. But this approving of pre-approved cabinet design, it's not new. We have done it in the past.
But that is exactly my point, and forgive me. We are now 7 years since 2015. And over these 7 years, this has become a growing, bigger and bigger concern. It has been expressed by the commission. I'm the longest standing member at this point. I believe I was sitting here in I wasn't sitting here in 2015. I don't know. But I am the longest remaining member. And this has been a growing concern over not just the design, but the multiplicity of the boxes and but the issue of the design relative to the location. So I am okay with the picture that is sitting in front of me right now. I could say yes to that. I don't know what the next site looks like. And as Commissioner Gallardo said, that next site might need that box to be more hay colored so that it blends in better. In another case where the street may be well lively, just because there are other AGF boxes, and that was what was the starting concern. That's how this thing started this has been mushrooming. So I'm not suggesting anyone is doing anything wrong. I'm saying this concern has been raised over and over, and setting a precedent today means that that says we're just going to keep doing this. That every AGF that keeps coming to us, the location of the AGF relative to its design is irrelevant, and we are not of that position.
And it's not just about, it is about our position because we believe that to be true. But as I said in the last agenda item, if you look, if we are technically voting on design and you look at the design parameters under our commissioner workbook, you will see that context is a requirement for anyone presenting design to this commission. Sure. So I think in this instance, I think for precedent reasons, it is important to know what Commissioner Jefferson pointed out, which is this is an exception because of state mandate and safety. But we're going in circles here again about what we are to focus on and not focus on. And so I'll just leave it to staff to review and give us, you know, what their findings are on this. As for this, those were my recommendations with regard to color. Those are my comments, basically. I'm ready to vote.
Thank you, Commissioner Gallardo.
I have a question, if I might.
Yes.
The box that says Alpha on it, is that the manufacturer of the box, or who is that?
Yes, sir. So Alpha is the manufacturer. They are also, it's a turnkey project for designers, permitting, engineering, construction, and activation. They're doing the entire thing.
Are there any legal requirements to have their name on the box? And if so, to what degree?
What do you mean? So is there a legal requirement? Not that I know of. Okay. They are the manufacturer. They built these boxes. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So it would be reasonable, following Commissioner Jefferson's line of thought, if I may be so presumptuous, that you would be able to, that there would be no signage on there whatsoever, in addition to the change of a color, and that would be acceptable. Also, if there were 3 of these in a row on Sunset Boulevard, where signage is worth more than office buildings, there is a certain amount of kind of free advertising, if you will. So that would be a consideration that I would be, in addition to color and size and shape and all of that, the signage that is on the box would be of interest to me.
I think that's a good point, Commissioner Vincent. So I think
it happens occasionally.
Yes. For the record, we would like the signage to be discreet and minimal as possible. I guess that's
this is with Alpha, if I may jump in just for a second, I apologize. These boxes the new boxes are going to be placed adjacent to the existing cabinets that are there. And the majority of the existing cabinets that have been in place for 10, 15, 20 years have Alpha on that as well. So the existing will show Alpha, and the new ones, you know, if you wanted Alpha removed, again, the existing one already has Alpha printed on it as well.
Well, I have an idea. Would you be willing to, these 15, 20-year-old cabinets with Alpha on them, would you be willing to repaint them so that they're all at least the same color of rust?
And Commissioner Vincent, this is Ricardo. So this project, as I mentioned, it's, you know, it impacts the entire state. Alpha as a manufacturer of these type of cabinets and batteries are working not only with Charter Spectrum, but Cox, Comcast, you name it, throughout the state to provide this product. It's a, you know, so just in the charter area with the 4,000 locations, we're looking at, upwards of, 7,000 cabinets. It's with the timing that we have with the state. In other words, if this was a project that we brought to the city as a, let's say, charter upgrade to upgrade our facilities, of course, all those things we would be able to identify up front and be able to resolve with the manufacturer. These cabinets are already being built. It's in a plant in order to meet the requirement by the state.
I appreciate that, Mr. Zambrana. However, frankly, that's not our concern. Our concern is the impact that it's going to have on the face of our city. And people pay considerable amounts of money to have their name on the side of a city bus. And I don't see why we would want to support that kind of continued advertising. And the other concern is if, as was stated earlier, you have some of these that have been there for 15 or 20 years, I imagine they're going to look much different than the new ones going in next to them. And that's why I asked if then you'd be willing to paint them. So that.
Thank you for that, Commissioner. What I thought I heard from you was the new ones. If what the recommendation is, we can look at the existing ones to paint them to look closer to the new ones. That's certainly something that I can take back.
Great, and you can continue with removing the alpha as you're painting.
Commissioner, this is Keith Sawyer again. If I could just chime in here. I know that with the name on the cabinets, a lot of times if there's an issue with the site, they need to know who to contact that put the site. A lot of times you'll see on vaults the names of the cable company that installed the vault. So we can check into that and work through with city staff about the possibility of removing that, if that's doable or possible. I mean, I don't want to speak for Rich and Alpha, but I think also.
Right. So Mr. Sawyer, with regard to those identification of who the box belongs to and who's responsible for it, that can be achieved with a little tag in the corner. This is clearly an advertisement.
So thank you, Mr. Sawyer. Maybe somebody can get back to us. I just want to check if there's any other questions or comments from any of the other commissioners. Commissioner Ho.
No, I want to thank my fellow commissioners for addressing this issue.
Yeah. Or Commissioner Jimenez, do you have any comments?
Not at this time.
Yeah, thank you. So are you guys comfortable to take a vote? I'm wondering if we have a motion to approve the design of these boxes.
I want to move the approval of the boxes for concept with the understanding that due to the state legislation looking to, sorry for me not wording this well, looking to enact an emergency measure or enact emergency protections, that we would approve this design or concept with the understanding, with that understanding and the understanding that we have some concerns with regards to whether or not the name needs to be so prominently displayed, and concern as to whether or not when they go into their locations, will there be any opportunities to ensure that the box blends well into the location? I hope somebody recorded that.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Jefferson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Commissioner Jimenez. Okay, I'll take a roll call vote. Commissioner Gallardo, how do you vote?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Ho?
Yes.
Commissioner Vincent?
No.
Commissioner Jimenez?
No.
Commissioner Jefferson?
Yes, with the caveats.
And Commissioner Ho, I asked you, correct?
Yeah, you asked, you,
Okay.
she voted, yeah. And yourself now, I think.
Okay, now I'm the last vote and I vote yes with Commissioner Jefferson's caveat. So I think we have 4 yeses and 2 nos. Is that correct?
And that is for concept.
That is for concept, yes. So the motion is approved for concept only. So should we move to the next item?
I'm
Sorry, can I get some clarification here? So you guys want to see the cabinets come back with the location?
Oh, I thought it was the color.
Mhm.
No, you want to remove the logo, right? And you want it to ensure that the locations of the new cabinet lives well in the location.
What I would suggest is that if you had, say, 4 colors available, whichever color would best fit into the surrounding environment.
It's appropriate, right, for the context.
Or you can bring all 517 individually up for approval.
Is that going to be added to the concept as well?
The
That would
3
be the
items are
final.
color options for relative to the location, and the finding an alternative to the advertising name for the manufacturer of the box.
So just so I understand correctly, I could have sworn, Commissioner Vincent, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, sir, that you had mentioned that you were concerned with the existing boxes that are there to color them to look like the new boxes. Mr.
Zambrana, you're correct. I did say that, but it was intended as a suggestion, something you may wish to come back with, and it was also as a means to painting over the alpha, and any existing boxes would all be the same color that it was painted. That was part of my suggestion.
So then, just so I understand it, the first part of this conception is the removal of the brand of Alpha on the new cabinets, ensuring that the existing cabinets get painted to look like the new cabinets, which is seafoam green, and as Commissioner Jefferson mentioned, to ensure that the locations of these new cabinets fit well, so that they're reviewed and we're not just placing them in any ordinary place that we want to. So as you guys are probably already know, we have submitted this also to LA Planning to look at the some of the SP corridors and stuff like that. So they will all be reviewed and as well with BOEs. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, but with regard to the color, the suggestion was, let's just say there were 4 different colors. Whatever of those 4 colors fit in best with that environment. You know what I mean? So that we can do our best to make it fit in, not be so obvious. That's my point.
Right. So although the cabinets are being painted seafoam green for all the new cabinets, right? So are you asking us to change the colors in the manufacturing plant for possible colors within the city of LA?
It was a suggestion.
And here's the issue. As long as we are not being shown the location where the cabinet is going, and we're being asked to approve a cabinet, a generic cabinet design, which was one of the reasons that you got an objection, because there's a desire to see where a cabinet is going and what it will look like in that environment. The reason for not doing that on this project is because of the state mandate. If there is an opportunity to at least come up with options so that should you end up getting ready to drop this in the middle of a rock quarry, the seafoam green cabinet might not look as good as if you just made it the color of the rock quarry. We're asking you to go back and look at some options. We're trying to work with the concept that we don't, to use Commissioner Gallardo's words, in some ways we have no choice. This needs to be done. In other ways, we need to at least make sure that to the extent that there is some flexibility, we ask you to look at that and come back to us with what that might be. And then we can get into, therefore we just approved 4,000 boxes. We don't know where they're going, but we put our best effort into trying to do this because of the state mandate for 72-hour resiliency.
Thank you, Commissioner Jefferson. And we did provide all those locations, so you do have a list of them.
I think we do have the locations, right? As you explained earlier, what this is in reference to is based on those locations, what colors, if there's say 3 or 4, would best blend into those locations for those AGF boxes. That's what we're trying to suggest and recommend. We're all in a difficult position because from what I heard, we're approving a design that's already underway, right? We're being asked to approve a design that is already at the manufacturers. So we're trying to make the best out of a really, kind of situation so that we can explain to the residents of LA who we represent here, why these are all popping up and why, right, they couldn't be more ideal for whatever reason. So that's, we're trying to get us, that answered and get you on the timeline that you need to meet and do all the, so that's the recommendation. Based on the locations that you have identified, we've seen, can you select a color that best blends those AGFs into that environment? That's what we're asking.
Yep.
And we have not seen the locations.
Yeah.
They have just sent them, but we have not seen them.
Right, they're listed. My apologies. Okay.
Sorry, how many colors would you guys like to see?
Well, they said there were 4 colors, right? So we have
I've never, I don't think I ever said there were 4 colors. So there's one color being built, which is seafoam green. There are existing cabinets out there that can be different colors than what the new cabinets in there, and that's why I mentioned that my understanding is Commissioner Vincent mentioned, if Charter can paint those existing ones, it resolves that concern.
Okay, I apologize. I have to leave, but Commissioner Ho is going to finish the meeting. So thank you, everyone. I'll see you next time.
Thank you. Thanks,
Bye.
Commission President.
Thank you.
I think, Ricardo, if I understand correctly, what the commission is asking for is for you to both match and make sure that they are in line with what is existing there. So if the landscape that it's going into may not necessarily be one that seafoam green is the one that they are looking for, then my understanding again from the commission is that they're interested in seeing what it will be that will best blend with the surroundings that it's in.
In an effort to move this along, I think this is how I like to summarize what we're requesting. Correct me if I'm wrong, fellow commissioners. The intention is for us to be able to vote with intention because we know this is a regulated process. It's going to happen. But for us to really do our due diligence, we need a little bit more information and a little bit more work from you to provide us the context in which these boxes will be placed. I know there are about 500, but there's also 500 different variation that may not reflect the community in which the boxes will end up being in. So we need to feel confident that there are options that will live in integrity of the space that it will eventually be in. So we're asking you to come back. We want to be able to vote on for conceptual, right? And have you come back and show us a little bit more work in terms of the options that are available with the colors. Because we know this is something that is, we're trying to figure this out. This is going to happen, and it makes sense for these boxes to exist as a life safety issue, but we need a little bit more option.
I think we voted for the conceptual. We're
Yes.
wanting to vote for the final. Is that
Okay.
correct?
Yeah, well, to have it come back to us after you've come back and said to us, here's what's possible, here's what exists, and
All right. Does that help clarify, Mr. Zambrana, Mr. Sawyer? Okay, great.
So
Yes.
just to clarify, you do want them to come back with a total of 4 color choices, or no?
No, 4, 5. I think what our intention is to give us option. Give us
Okay.
your best work so that we can make the decision that's best for the community that we're here to represent. 4 or 5, you want 10, that's cool too. But what we're asking is a little bit more work to give us the confidence to vote or to move forward. Yeah? Great. Thank you for your time for this. I know it's.
Thank you all.
Yeah, no, we appreciate it.
thank you.
Okay. So our next item is, I believe it's Verizon AGF. Is Mr. I think it's Rob Searcy that was here representing.
It should be Eric Fulsang.
Okay.
Rob Searcy has moved on from this firm.
Okay. Mr. Fulsang? Okay. I see your name on. Hi. Mr. Fulsang, we're ready for you.
He's having audio issues. If you're continuing to have audio issues, you could try calling in.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You can start your presentation.
I'd like to begin by saying I'm so incredibly sorry for my inability to use technology, even though I'm representing a technological firm. So I apologize. So my name is Eric Fulsang. I'm with Fulsang Architecture, and I'm representing Verizon Wireless regarding the proposed meter pedestal and step transformer located at Verdugo Crestline Drive and Woodward Avenue. We were here before, so I'd like to start with a brief recap of the project. The proposed meter and transformer are intended to provide power to an existing Verizon cell site about a half a mile to the west of the meter location on Verdugo Crestline. During our previous presentation to the commissioners, we discussed how to mitigate the appearance of the facility. A sandstone stucco finish, decorative boulders, and cactus plantings around the facility were added. We revised the drawings and photo simulations accordingly. After further consideration, we were asked to remove the cactus due to concern of introducing a non-native plant species to the area. The revised drawings and simulations are being presented today, and the stucco and boulders are a nice improvement. This is an important site for Verizon and an important site for the community at large. It provides enhanced safety and improved coverage for the area. Additionally, it will eliminate the generator that is currently being used to power the site. This will reduce vehicle trips to the site and eliminate emissions. We're very excited to accomplish that part most of all, quite honestly. With that, we'd like to thank the commissioners for their consideration and ask for final approval of the proposed project. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Can we see the project?
Yep, you're gonna have to walk us through this project. So we see exactly who's driving.
That's the title page.
Mr. Paulson, are you driving or is somebody from the department driving, staff driving?
Driving that, that's the Title I page. Excuse me, that's the overall survey, general notes. And then we're on this picture here is of the actual AGF. If you could please go back one to A1. That's the plan view of it. And then scrolling forward, this shows Verdugo Crestline. We're going to be trenching along Verdugo Crestline all the way to our site shown on A9. And then on A10 is a close-up view of the proposed facility with the rocks added around. And then we've got elevation drawings on A11. Am I getting too far ahead of you guys?
We're seeing page A6. So we're not where you
Okay.
are. So you just scan us forward and get us to the images and that'll help you.
We'd like to see the AGF.
There it is. Okay, there's the elevation drawings. And then going on to getting out of the drawings, going all the way through, you get to the first photo simulation. A little bit farther, please. Keep going. Be a color, but there's the first one. There's the second one. So what that shows is the aerial view of the facility before the existing condition and the proposed site build. This has the rocks and the stucco added. And then we have a closer view on the next sim. You go back one. And there you can see the meter pedestal and the transformer on a slab with a erosion control wall behind it that's painted and stucco, match the surroundings. And then the additional landscaping boulders around it to help it blend in and screen it somewhat. And that's it. Just one cabinet and 1 meter pedestal.
Okay, thank you. And this is, Verizon is asking for a final approval. I'd like to open it up for my fellow commissioners for any comments and questions. If there's none, I'm also open to vote.
I have one question. Is that going to be the color of the cabinet?
Yes.
Is it, you guys did a nice job of coloring the stucco to blend in. Is it possible to have the cabinet painted at least close to the same or complementary to the cabinet? Or to the wall?
Yes.
rather?
Yes, it is. Would
Great.
you like to see a similar color applied to the transformer and the meter pedestal?
Yes.
Kind of a sand?
Yes.
Okay. We can do that.
And I like the rocks.
We appreciate your, I remember this project very well, and we appreciate your effort to try to find ways to camouflage the walls surrounding surrounding the AGFs. So thank you.
Thank you.
Great. If there are no other questions, do I have a motion to for final approval?
I have a question. Would you
Yes.
like us to paint the bollards as well? They're currently shown as yellow. We can actually paint those a sand color too.
Yeah, that would be great.
Well, I assume that those were safety measures so that you would not.
Yeah, but mostly you hit the bollard so that you don't hit the meter pedestal.
Got it. Okay. Then go for it.
Thank you for your attentiveness and your reconsideration and the work that you put into making it blend with the environment better.
I move for final approval.
I second.
Great. We have final. I will take a vote. Commissioner Gallardo,
Yes.
Commissioner Vincent,
Yes.
Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jimenez,
Yes.
and Commissioner Ho votes yes. Congratulations. We have final approval.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Let's move on to street lighting submission at this point. We'll take this as action and consent items fully. Do we have a motion? Or does anybody want to discuss anything? I'd like to open that up. If not, we'll take this as consent.
Sorry, I wanted to ask a question here. So what we did for the agenda was add a border based off what Commissioner Jefferson said last time. So we wanted to graphically show the streetlight types better. So just so it graphically reads a little bit better. Are you guys okay with what we did here?
I thought it was very helpful.
Okay, great.
All right. Yeah, we have a motion to approve. Or do we need that for consent? Yeah, okay.
Yes, yes, you need that for consent.
Okay.
So what are we're doing all of the,
We've done the street lighting on consent from A and B.
I move that we vote in consent of A and B.
I second.
Great. We'll take this. Commissioner Jefferson,
Yes.
Commissioner Jimenez,
Yes.
Commissioner Vincent,
Yes.
Commissioner Gallardo,
Yes.
and Commissioner Ho says yes, so we have final on that.
And thank you very much, Tammy. Really appreciate that additional effort.
All
Thank
right,
you for the comment.
We'll hand it over to Interim General Manager for your report.
Wonderful, thank you. Thanks to everybody here today as we continue moving forward. Just want to briefly commend our staff again. Thank you to Tammy and to Juan and overall throughout the department, continuing to rise to the occasion as we go through our various transitions through the department. I also just wanted to share that the mayor has appointed me as the interim general manager. So I've moved from acting to interim, which I am delighted to report as the city continues to move forward on its next steps for the hiring process for the permanent general manager. We're continuing on hiring. We're continuing with our personnel staff to hire as quickly as possible, both making promotional opportunities available for our DCA existing staff, as well as to bring in new staff. We are similar to other departments, as other departments continue to face similar challenges, but we are doing the best that we are able to within the personnel structures that we have. On the area of reconstitution, we're continuing to move forward on reconstituting our sites, and our administrative team is working to ensure that we have all of the appropriate personal protective gear for staff and site preparation in place to be able to open to the public. A key part of this equation is our hiring. So we're hoping, as we bring on these new staff members, that we'll be able to, we'll have the full-time and part-time staff in place to ensure the health and safety of our employees and visitors. On the programming side, our staff continues to keep our programming quite robust. In honor of African American Heritage Month, we have presented our 2022 African American Heritage Month calendar and cultural guide. It contains in-person and online events, including art exhibitions and poetry recitals and community event listings. And these events celebrate and honor this year's national theme, the Black family, Black health and wellness, in addition to visual art and poetry from an amazing selection of established and emerging African American artists. Just a few other quick updates. We're continuing working on facility improvements and working to have those completed to the best extent possible prior to our reconstitution. And we're doing improvements from our sites in Sun Valley and Canoga Park to Watts, and we're working with GSD closely on this. Lastly, just wanted to share that we're continuing to work with the mayor's office on a few different memorials for the COVID-19 memorial for the citywide, and then the 1871 anti-Chinese massacre memorial to build and strengthen the city's civic institutional memory. So I just want to say again, thank you to all of you as our commission to continue serving and representing the city and the citizens of Los Angeles. And I encourage you all to please stay healthy and safe. And we'll see each other next month.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Shout
you.
out to the, I just wanted to celebrate the Black History Month committee that I know has been in place for quite a long time and puts together or curates, right, that what goes into that book, and also to the staff that lays it out, make sure it gets done. It looks beautiful. It's just gorgeous. So congratulations to all.
Thank you. We're deeply grateful for our partners in that. Commissioner Jefferson, would you like to say anything?
I simply want to not only ditto and thank Gallardo for that recognition for the committee. I do serve on it, but I really want to thank the staff, because they went through extra efforts this year to also try and figure out how we not only do this digitally, but what do we do for those rare instances where people do not have digital access and can still have access to this book. And to do so, looking at how does this impact and serve the future Affinity Month program. So it wasn't just a Black History Month thing. And the city of Los Angeles has been doing this for 72 years, supporting it was started with the Author Study Club and has been supporting it. And so our appreciation both to the mayor, a lot of other agencies that support this, but Cultural Affairs has been right there from the beginning. And I want to thank them and give a shout out as well to Board Commissioner Mike Davis, who leads most of the Zoom producing programs that are going on all month long. There's one tomorrow night. So just thank you all, but thank you very much, DCA, for all of your work.
Thank you.
And cousin Carter G. Woodson says thank you too.
Thank you. We'll definitely relay the thanks to our staff that worked so hard on it.
All right, just with that, our next meeting will be on March 9th, and I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Thank you all.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Well done.